My name is Sergeant Rick Schiff. I'm an 11-year veteran of the San Francisco Police Department. I hold the department's highest Medal of Honor for bravery. That used to mean a lot more to me than it does now. What I'd like to talk to you about today is my now 7-year-old daughter. This is an identical twin. Her sister is now dead. Her sister, when she was 4 years old, Kristen, developed a highly malignant brain tumor that had spread throughout her spine and her brain. The doctors told us that we had really two options: take her home, let her die, or bring her in for massive dosages of chemo and radiation simultaneously. In either event, she was going to die. They were quite certain of that, and very quickly. Believing her only chance to be the standard route, we gave her the chemo and radiation. It burned her skull so bad she had second-degree burns and her hair never came back. To change her diapers, we had to wear rubber gloves because her urine was so toxic and it burned her. At the end of 6 months, miraculously, she survived the standard treatment, although there was a high expectation she wouldn't. She still had cancer. We were told, sorry, we've done everything we can. Now she's going to die, probably within a couple of months. My wife and I, choosing not to accept that, started reading. The first book I picked up, the third chapter, discussed Dr. Burzynski. As you may guess, I have some expertise in fraud. In fact, I'm quite certain there are enough attorneys in the room that I could be vordeered as an expert in fraud. And I conducted my own investigation. I have no doubt the man is not a fraud. I have no doubt that he does what he does out of earnest belief that his medicine works. And now you're in a position to judge for yourselves whether it works or not, but it's well established by the FDA that it's non-toxic. 18 months later, we took my daughter off the anti-neoplastin. She had not died. She had no signs of tumor. She remained free for 18 months of cancer. Within a month, the cancer was widespread in her brain. We put her back on Burzynski's. By the way, at the objections of our doctors, for some reason felt that it had failed her. We put her back on. Within 9 weeks, the tumor was completely gone. She died last July of neurological necrosis. Her brain fell apart from the radiation. The autopsy showed that she was completely cancer-free. Out of 52 cases of that disease ever, no one died cancer-free, just Chrissy. So she didn't die of a terminal illness. She died of my inability to care for her properly, and she died from bad advice. She died because there's a government institution that disseminates false information and is not looking out for the welfare of the people. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I swore an oath 11 years ago, and I think most of us in this room swore it at one time or another, to uphold the Constitution. It says life right in the beginning.
I first heard of Dr. Burzynski back in the late 1980s when he was in a battle with the Texas Medical Board and the FDA regarding his innovative approach to cancer. I wasn't surprised by that. Anyone who's innovative in medicine creates waves in the medical system. However, in his case, I was continually surprised that they didn't put him out of business. I kept hearing about him. So in the mid-1990s, I said, Dr. Burzynski, I want to come down to visit your clinic and find out what you're doing. It's very new to me. When I arrived, he had 7 charts ready for me to review that had been reviewed by the National Cancer Institute, who also made a site visit the year before. The National Cancer Institute reported that these 7 patients were either in complete remission or there was substantial improvement. I was astounded. Dr. Burzynski had MRIs of brain tumors known to be almost universally fatal that had simply disappeared. It was obvious to me that Dr. Burzynski had made the most important discovery in cancer treatment ever. It's what we have been looking for.
A Polish native named Stanislaw Burzynski attended Lublin Medical University, where he graduated first in his class at age 24, and then received his PhD in biochemistry the following year. While undergoing his research to acquire his PhD, Dr. Burzynski made a profound discovery. He found a strain of peptides in human blood and urine that had never before been recorded in biomedical research. As his curiosity in these peptides evolved, he made another profound observation. People who were inflicted with cancer seemed to lack these newly discovered peptides in both their blood and urine, while those who were healthy and free of cancer appeared to have an abundance of these peptides. Dr. Burzynski theorized that if he could somehow provide a way to chemically extract these peptides from the blood and urine of healthy donors and administer these peptides to those with cancer, perhaps it could be useful in treating the disease.
Now, discovering something in the urine at that time that had not been discovered before is like finding a whole bunch of islands 10 miles off the coast of Miami. It came as a big surprise. All of a sudden, he was besmirched as the urine doctor. We forget that extracting things from the urine is an established medical modality. Tens of millions of women have been swallowing extracts of horse urine, Premarin, for decades. But all of a sudden, it was abhorrent to our sensitivities. Well, Dr. Burzynski now synthesizes all of the antineoplastons.
Dr. Burzynski's manufacturing facility in Stafford, Texas, where his antineoplastons are now synthesized, is a multi-million-dollar, 46,000 square foot facility which staffs 5 engineers, 4 chemists, 3 pharmacists, 4 medical doctors, and 4 researchers.
When we started in 1970s, now is forming completely new approach to cancer treatment, which is called gene-targeted therapy. Antineoplastons are medicines which work on the genes which are causing cancer. And now there's 25 medications which belong to the family of gene-targeted therapy, which are approved by FDA in the United States. The problem with these medicines is that they don't cover as many genes as antineoplastons. Many of them simply work on single genes, and this is not enough to have long-term responses. Single medicine is not going to do it. It's not enough. Antineoplastons work on close to 100 different genes.
Our bodies contain 2 categories of genes that allow cancer to flourish: oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes. When someone has cancer, they have a higher level of oncogenes switched on, with a higher level of tumor suppressor genes switched off. The goal is to tell the body to both switch back on the tumor suppressor genes and turn off as many oncogenes as possible.
Statistically, every day, 1 out of 10,000 cells in our body may develop in the wrong way, and some of these cells may become cancerous cells. But why we don't develop cancer, all of us, is because we have protective system, we have antineoplastons who will immediately force these malignant cells to die by working on the genes, by turning on genes which fight cancer, turning off the genes which promote cancer. As long as we have proper amount of antineoplastons in our system, we should not develop cancer. If we are deficient, then we can develop cancer. So this means that I put together a theory of the second quote-unquote immune system in our body.
Today, Dr. Burzynski is permitted by the FDA to treat cancer patients using antineoplastons in FDA-approved clinical trials. Since brain cancer is one of the most difficult types of cancer to treat, he places a heavy focus on brain cancer in his clinical trials.
On May 15th of 2000, I was diagnosed with an inoperable stage 3 anaplastic astrocytoma brain tumor. Following my diagnosis, I was told that I had 6 to 18 months to live. So I met with oncologists here in Los Angeles and in San Francisco, and they were telling me at that time, the oncologist told me that the protocol for me would be to do Temodar, which is a chemotherapy, followed by a course of radiation. I asked them what that treatment would get me, and they said maybe 5 years. Maybe 5 years of life. So, of course, I asked what would happen after 5 years if I get to that 5 years, and they said, well, we'll see what's available at that time, meaning I would perpetually be on a course of treatment. Didn't sound good enough for me. Also, at that time, I'd heard about Dr. Burzynski in Houston, and I found out about Dr. Burzynski through a friend of mine, but I met with a prominent neurosurgeon here who wrote off Dr. Burzynski. And he told me point blank that antineoplastons don't work. Dr. Burzynski's treatment really sounded right to me. So I started on his treatment on June 6th of 2000. In December of 2000, all that was left of the tumor was scar tissue. And again, this was confirmed through an MRI. In October of 2001, I stopped anti-neoplastin therapy altogether. I've had annual MRIs since that time, so over the course of the last 8 years, annual MRIs have confirmed all that's left of the tumor is scar tissue, and I've been off of treatment for that entire time. So Dr. Burzynski cured me of a brain tumor.
If we review Jody Fenton's medical records, who was known at this time as Jody Gold before she was married in 2005, it shows she underwent an MRI at St. John's Medical Center in Los Angeles on May 11th of 2000, where they found a 2-centimeter mass, which they suspected was cancer. The pathology department at St. John's performed a biopsy 4 days later and confirmed that she did indeed have a malignant brain tumor. Ordinarily, the FDA requires that anyone who wishes to be a part of Dr. Burzynski's trials must first have already undergone chemotherapy and radiation and failed. However, since Jody's tumor was so aggressive and her prognosis severely grim, she managed to get special exception status to be placed into this trial without undergoing any other prior treatment whatsoever. An MRI on June 1st of 2000 revealed the size of the enhancing portion of Jody's tumor, which was the part of her tumor that was the most aggressively growing. On June 6th, she started anti-neoplastin treatment, and by July 3rd, only a month after starting treatment, the enhancing portion of her tumor was gone. Her tumor remained non-existent up until September of the following year, when she stopped her anti-neoplastin treatment altogether. It's one thing to be shown a single anecdotal case with this type of brain tumor, and it's another to simply compare clinical trial data of inoperable anaplastic astrocytoma patients treated with toxic radiation and chemotherapy versus clinical trial data using only Dr. Burzynski's non-toxic anti-neoplastin therapy. A 2005 clinical trial report using only radiation and chemotherapy found that 5 of 54 patients, or 9%, were cancer-free at the end of treatment, while a 2008 clinical trial report using only anti-neoplastons found that 5 of 20 patients, or 25%, were cancer-free at the end of treatment, with no toxic side effects. Jody Fenton is one of them.
If Jody Fenton had undergone the therapies originally prescribed to her, her life would have been very different. Now she is alive, well, and prospering. It's as if she had a bacterial infection and Dr. Burzynski treated it with antibiotics.
4 years after my diagnosis, I had run into one of the neuro-oncologists that I met with and told him that I had gone to Dr. Burzynski and I was cured, and he kind of wrote it off. I was very excited to tell him that I was cured, and he really burst my bubble about it, so it was somewhat depressing for me. Another doctor that I have, when I told him I had an anaplastic astrocytoma, he was very excited. He's like, bleep, 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 I can't believe this is you, because do you know what the prognosis for this is? And I said, yes. He's like, I can't believe you survived this, and he was very excited for me.
Now, if you're ever going to go into cancer treatment, you do not want to go into childhood brain tumors, because childhood brain tumors, by and large, are 100% fatal. This would be the worst class of cancers to treat. But he began getting enormous success.
Arguably the worst type of cancer is inoperable brainstem glioma. Usually it involves brain of children, and unfortunately there's very little what can be done. Radiation is the only treatment which can be used to slow down the progress. So that's the type of tumor for which there's no curative treatment, no chemotherapy which is approved. And numerous clinical trials were performed but failed in the past. So we selected this type of tumor because we would like to prove the point beyond any doubt that this type of cancer can be cured